a national treasure. One of my favourite solo artists. 8 new songs, 2 covers. Ian playing many of the instruments, apart from the vast array of instruments played by his 2 sons. And produced by the man himself. The King Monkey returns with his first solo effort in 10 years. Ripples. I have to stop then because it's going up and I'm prone to falling. Okay, hello. Welcome back, and I'm going to be reviewing Ian Brown's latest album, Ripples. This is his first album in 10 years. I think the last solo album that he did was My Way back in 2009. A lot of people were anticipating a new Stone Roses album. The band got together, can't remember what it was now, was it 2011? Performed a lot of live shows. I think they released 2 singles, maybe. There was a lot of rumour about a new Stone Roses album coming out, but for whatever reason that did not come to pass. Never one to lay idle, Mr. Brown has released another solo album, Ripples, which is what you're watching about now. The majority of the songs on this were written by Ian himself, although he did co-write 3 songs, I think it was, with his sons. There are also 2 covers on the album as well. On top of that, Ian played a lot of the instruments and he produced the album himself. I've been a huge fan of Ian Brown throughout the years. Unfinished Monkey Business was an incredible album. I remember me and my good friend Stephen Milsom, hi Steve, used to listen to that album all the time. And when it first came out, it was just such an eclectic album. I think there were a lot of people who kind of wrote Ian Brown off after Stone Roses broke up, thinking that, you know, what's he going to do? There's a lot of criticism of his voice, and he proved everybody wrong with an incredible album. A lot of great stuff on that album. After that, he released Golden Greats, which was an incredible album, so experimental. Really was an absolutely phenomenal album, that one. A lot of great stuff on there. There were a lot of great remixes to that as well. I'm not usually a fan of remix stuff, but there was a particularly good remix of If Dolphins Were Monkeys. I think it was, I can't remember if it was an Uncle remix. I'm blithering, I'm going on. Golden Greats was a golden album. After that there was Music of the Spheres, which was a great album. Of course it had the standout track Fear, which is a great song. Gravy Train I loved as well. That was a really strong album. There's a lot of good stuff on there. And again, me and my good friend Stephen Milsom, hi Steve, went to see Mr. Brown on that tour, and it was a great gig. Very charismatic frontman, and there was a particular issue with a real dickhead in the crowd. This guy was drunk out of his mind. He was causing a lot of trouble throughout the gig, and Mr. Brown dealt with it accordingly. I won't go into too much detail. That was a great gig, and yeah, cemented him as a legendary frontman in my eye. And I've seen interviews with him as well, and he seems like a really spiritual, cool guy. I like Ian Brown a lot. I think he's great. He really is a national treasure. Later on he released Solarized, which had some great stuff on there. I thought that was a very enjoyable album. But I've got to say that his next 2 albums, The World Is Yours and 2009's My Way, his last solo album, I didn't really check them out. It's not that I thought any of them were bad or anything. They kind of just passed me by for some reason. So this is the first Ian Brown I've heard really since Solarized. So without further fudge, let's start looking at some of the fucking music, shall we? That's what you're here for. First track and the lead single from the album is First World Problems. This got a bit of a backlash. A lot of people kind of were very dismissive of it. Well, I seem to fall into 2 camps. People absolutely loved it, or they just weren't into it at all. I think some twat gave it a 0 out of 10 on Twitter. I personally really enjoyed this song. I thought it was really good. There's no denying it has the same chord structure as Sympathy for the Devil by the Stones, and bears more than a striking resemblance to Loaded by Primal Scream. It still has that real Ian Brown feel to it, and also a Stone Roses feel to it as well. There's a touch of Fool's Gold in there as well, but yeah, unlike a lot of people, I actually particularly enjoyed this one. I thought it was very enjoyable, had a real groove to it. I particularly enjoyed the bass lines on it, which I think are played by his son Casey, who I will say does some great work throughout the album. I really enjoyed a lot of the bass lines throughout this album. There you go again with your first world problems. Where you living is easy. Messing up your mind, the daily grind. Gotta leave it all behind. Driving everybody crazy. I like the video to this one as well. It's basically a throwback to the Fear video, with Ian riding around on his bike, this time along the canals of Manchester, I assume. Some particularly scathing reviews for this song, but I for one actually enjoyed this one a lot. Next up we have Black Roses, and this is the first of 2 cover songs, and this one is originally by Barrington Levy, and the original song is an incredible reggae song. Barrington's voice is absolutely glorious on the original, but that's not to say I didn't like this one. This is a rockier, punky version of the song. I gotta admit, I didn't initially like it. When I first heard it, I was a bit not really digging this one so much, but it did grow on me quite a lot. It's not as good as the original by any stretch, but it's a solid version and not a bad one at all. Interestingly enough, I've got a video of my top 10 cover songs coming out later on this week, so you might want to check that out. Subscribe, you bitch, subscribe. Next song is Breathe and Breathe Easy, the Everness of Now. I will say now, there were quite a few songs on this I didn't enjoy as much, and it started with this song. It's not necessarily that I think they're bad songs, it's just that Ian Brown is one of those people I hold in very high regard, so maybe I judge him a little more harshly than I would some other artists. I wasn't such a fan of this one. It's got this kind of flat sounding acoustic guitar with Ian singing over the top of it. I would say that his voice on this album is great. He sounds as good as ever, if anything better than ever. There's some experience to his voice that I quite enjoy. But yeah, this song just kind of, I don't know, it was the first of a few songs on this album that just doesn't seem to go anywhere. It starts off nicely enough, but he's always been quite an experimental guy, and I've always liked the fact that he's always pushed things. But there's a few songs on this album that kind of just don't feel like they're going anywhere. Sadly, this was one of those songs. I don't know if this was done intentionally, but on the outro of the song, the final chord is a piano chord that is very similar to that of A Day in the Life by the Beatles. By the Beatles. Not a bad song, but not a standout either. You join me taking a quick water stop here just before I start this descent, which many times I've fallen down. It's been on a few of my videos. I'm hoping I don't today. I don't want to fall down again, I really don't. I know Cheer Yourself Deaf finds it particularly funny, but... Next up we have The Dream and the Dreamer. There's some very impressive bass work on this, which was reminiscent of Stone Roses. I do wonder actually if some of the songs on this album were intended for the new Stone Roses album. There's a few of them that have a very reminiscent feel of that band. Then again, having said that, I think those songs are pretty much the ones that he wrote with his sons. So whether it was meant in homage to his father's band or not, I don't know, but this was one of them. Earth is gold, sea is green, the dream belongs to the dreamer. Starlit night, moonlight bright, the dream belongs to the dreamer. It's the title of the song, it makes sense that it's in the song. I enjoyed this one actually, I thought this one was okay, but I did feel it kind of went on a little bit too long. The outro to it very much brings to mind the outro of Fool's Gold, kind of like this rhythmic jam session, kind of just fading out the song. Decent enough tune, but yeah, could have done with being a little shorter, I thought. Do one more here before I start my descent into Fawley territory. From Chaos to Harmony is next. Nice bit of wah guitar in this song. Starts out kind of very slow and plodding up until about 2/3 of the way of the song through, and then it kind of beefs up a bit. And I could have done with a bit more of this throughout the album. As I said, a lot of it kind of feels like it's not really going anywhere, or it feels like it's building to something and then it doesn't. This one actually did. It did morph into something else towards the back end of the song, which I enjoyed, I appreciated. Due to a particularly selfish person who also feels that they have the right to roam these hills as I do, approaching from the same direction that I was going, I've decided to take an alternate route. One that hopefully I won't fall down. Fucking selfish people everywhere. Don't they know this is mine? Next up we have It's Raining Diamonds. This is another song that's essentially an acoustic, and Ian singing along. But unlike Breathe and Breathe Easy, I found this song to be much more enjoyable. It kind of felt like it had a bit more life to it. I had a dream. I held a palm tree in the palm of my hand. I'm on a coral sand beach. No, you're on the hill. Where pelicans fly. I'm laying in the cool breeze, doing what I please. I enjoyed this one a lot. It had a trippy kind of dreamlike quality to it. I thought this was a solid song, this one. I like this one. Next up we get the title track itself, Ripples. Again, this was another one of those very Stone Roses inspired ones. Drum and bass, the rhythm section there being, is very reminiscent of that, and there was some definite John Squire inspired guitar going on there as well. A bit of that sort of funky wah-wah guitar, that funky wah-wah guitar. Yeah, decent enough tune. Next up we get Blue Sky Day. I guess this is his environmental message one maybe, or a government conspiracy one, I don't know. Chemtrails are mentioned. Whatever happened to a blue sky day? Well, there. Planes overhead spray all my blue sky day away. Spraying out the sun, milking out the sky. Aerosols at altitude, at atmospheric heights. Jet planes making chemtrails. See, I told you he said chemtrails. Making grid lines in the sky. Street graffiti not allowed, but vandalise stratospheric skies. I noticed there was a bit of a strong similarity to Nina Simone's Feeling Good in the kind of vocal pattern that was used on this as well. But it worked well, and yeah, I enjoyed this song a lot. I thought this was a pretty cool one. Penultimate track is Soul Satisfaction. This, unfortunately, again, was another one of those tracks that started out fairly promising, but it didn't really go anywhere. And it kind of started off a bit more of that old school sort of Ian Brown sort of vibe to it. It kind of felt a little bit more varied than the rest of the album. And yeah, because of that, I was kind of expecting something more of it, but it didn't really materialise, unfortunately. Again, not a bad song, it just kind of left me wanting more. And the final song of the album is Break Down the Walls, warm-up jam in brackets. And this is the second cover on the album, originally by a guy called Mikey Dread. Again, another reggae ska-based song, and the original. This one, unlike Black Roses, this one didn't really do anything different to the original. Again, another one that's not a particularly bad song, and not even a bad cover version. It's just kind of felt a bit of a dull way to end the album, in my opinion. And there you have it. That's the album. In terms of a score, I'd give it a 6 out of 10, unfortunately. Possibly even a 5. I expect more from Ian Brown. I appreciate the family vibe on the album. I appreciate the fact that he did a lot of this music with his sons. There is a lot to enjoy. There's always good stuff with Ian Brown. But I think when you look at his past work, he's always been somebody who's pushed boundaries and experimented more, and I guess that's what I expect from him. There's been a couple of times throughout the songs where I'm kind of expecting it to go somewhere, and it just kind of didn't. Another thing I noticed as well, it kind of doesn't sound like an album. I don't know if it was rushed, or you know, he just wanted to get something out, or I'm not sure. But I mean, out of the 10 songs, there are 2 cover songs which already had alarm bells ringing. It kind of feels like maybe some of the songs could have had a bit more work done to them, spent a bit more time developing them. Some of them were leftover material maybe he was looking to do with the Stone Roses. I don't know. There's just something about the album that leaves me wanting. I guess one of the reasons I'm so harsh on it is because Ian Brown really is a favourite artist of mine. I love his solo work, and I love his solo work way more than I do his work with the Stone Roses, if I'm going to be quite honest. This was without a shadow of a doubt one of my anticipated albums of the year, so I expected a lot from it. But there is some good stuff on there, and as usual, I highly recommend you check it out yourselves, make up your own mind. Don't take the word of this lesser grey-haired twat. I'm going to stick with 6 out of 10. I don't know, maybe it's a 5.5. Just, yeah, something not quite there. Hopefully by the end of the year this will be one of those albums that I reconsider, maybe give a better score to. It's happened before. Albums do have a tendency to grow on you, so hopefully this will be one of those. Join me in a couple of days where I'll be doing my top 10 cover songs list, and I'll be doing some other stuff next week as well. So until then, goodbye. Fair do, fair, fair, fair.